Good evening. I'm Diana Sky, and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. For the first time since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, air raid sirens sounded in eastern Poland. Now, military officials urge calm, stressing that Polish airspace wasn't violated for a second time this week. Yet a lingering question remains: how should people respond to such warnings? Well, we'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Local elections in Germany put Merz to the test. And Moldova is at crossroads for its European path. And Russia is spinning off its own Eurovision contest. It's been quite an unsettling week in Poland. Now, air raid sirens shook eastern Poland on Saturday due to Russian attacks in Ukraine, triggering unease across cities from Lublin to Chełm. Now, this comes just days after Russian drones breached Polish airspace in an unprecedented drone strike, pushing Nato and Polish armed forces to scramble their jets. Authorities are urging calm, but our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek explores how the warnings serve as a harsh reminder of rising tensions on Poland's eastern flank.
An unprecedented event shook the residents of eastern Poland on Saturday as air raid sirens sounded over residential areas.
First reaction, anxiousness. I thought there was probably another violation of our airspace, but generally we could only observe what was happening. I was a little scared because I'm from Ukraine. I came to Poland thinking things would be better, but with these sirens, it feels a bit strange and I feel uneasy. Let me put it this way. I'm afraid because I know what it's like, because my wife's parents live in Ukraine, so I have an idea of what it's like.
But while a sense of unease and anxiety prevails for some, others encourage composure.
It's dangerous for sure, but we must remain calm and trust those in power. There are sirens, yes, but we should also follow the announcements and not panic unnecessarily, because unfortunately, panic is a bad advisor here.
This comes just days after Poland experienced the biggest yet incursion into its airspace, when 19 Russian drones flew over Polish territory early on Wednesday. And in response, Poland is preparing to counter Russian drones, and fast. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski has visited Kiev to discuss joint Ukrainian-Polish drone-related training. Polish armed forces are also conducting training to boost their defensive readiness with the Iron Defender exercises. And it's not just the Polish army that's working on its readiness, as bottom-up initiatives spring up across the country. This include hunters who see drones as their new prey.
If such a Russian drone crosses the border and flies within the range of a hunting weapon, it could be shot down at the cost of about €1. A hunting rifle can easily be used to shoot down drones.
Polish armed forces welcome the move, though they emphasize it's something that should rather be exercised within official units.
The military needs instructors from its own society. If hunters want to get involved, they should join territorial defense forces.
As the country's public opinion appears divided on whether Poland might be facing the threat of war with the Kremlin, the Polish government insists exercise caution, follow instructions, but be wary of panic-sowing disinformation.
We should learn to look at such actions from the point of view of our adversaries. Further incidents are something we can't avoid, and something for which I hope we, as the Polish state, are prepared.
For TV World, Zuzanna Jurek.
On Sunday, German Chancellor Friederich Merz may be facing his first political test in Germany's western federal state of North Rhine Westphalia. Now, thousands of local officials are being elected, with voters placing the stakes high on climate, social issues, and the rising influence of the far-right Alternative for Germany party. Now, the results could send a strong signal about the strength of Merz's coalition government. Sonia Gata-Biszczan has more.
Thousands of mayors and city council members will be chosen in Sunday's local elections in North Rhine Westphalia, home to almost a quarter of Germany's population. As nearly 14 million people are eligible to cast their votes, hopes and expectations vary.
I believe that sensible people will be elected so that sensible policies can be made for the city. What was important? Climate protection. We have a very overheated city. There are heat islands everywhere in Duisburg, and that has to change. I hope it will. I expect something to be done for the Neuenkamp neighborhood and something to be done for our seniors. For example, so that you can get around everywhere without obstacles using a rollator or not get stuck in the hole in the sidewalk and almost stumble. I actually expect little things, but I think the elderly are being forgotten.
Analysts suggest this election marks the first test for Chancellor Friederich Merz's coalition government, made up of his conservative CDU-CSU's alliance with the center-left SPD. It's especially crucial as the Conservative Alternative for Germany party, classified as right-wing extremist, is growing in popularity, particularly amid weak economy and growing unemployment in the country 4 months into Merz's tenure. Following the recent federal elections, AfD became the second strongest political force in the country. AfD's voters are mainly based in eastern Germany, but the party was looking to make gains in the urban, more Catholic western Germany too. Not everyone was set on the idea, though.
The most important goal is not to give AfD a chance at all here, which is why it makes sense to get up in the morning and come here in a good mood to vote against them.
Speaking a week before the local elections, Merz dismissed the idea that they would be a major test, saying federal and state politics will have only a limited influence on the election results. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabiszczan.
Now, the early projections suggest a good standing for the AfD, which could sound alarm bells for Merz after all. Moving on now to central London, which witnessed one of the largest right-wing rallies in the modern history of the United Kingdom. Now, up to 150,000 people took part in Tommy Robbins's Unite the Kingdom march on Saturday, demanding tougher immigration controls and, quote, defending British culture. Some 5,000 counter-protesters gathered nearby, with clashes leaving over 24 police officers injured and more than 20 demonstrators arrested.
It is very important. They need to stop illegal migration into this country.
I think the current government is a disgrace. It's taking away our liberties and making up things as they go along. I've never seen a government so disorganised.
Moldova is at a crossroads. With parliamentary elections just 2 weeks away, the country faces massive Russian meddling, from propaganda campaigns to pro-Kremlin parties vying for power. Our Balkans correspondent Pavel Chaskovsky looks into whether Moldova will stay on its pro-European path or fall back into Russia's sphere of influence.
Rarely are such heartfelt words spoken in the European Parliament.
Ladies and gentlemen, Moldova cannot escape its geography. We feel the long arm of Russian aggression.
Russia has been interfering in Moldovan politics ever since the country gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. And most recently, it launched massive propaganda and disinformation campaigns to disrupt the electoral processes. To protect itself from the Kremlin's influence, Chișinău strives to become a member of the EU, possibly by 2030. After last year's referendum, EU accession was even enshrined in the country's constitution.
Despite attempts to derail and to influence the results of these elections coming from Russia.
Moldova applied for EU membership in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine. And the doors are now wide open for Chișinău to join the bloc. But one condition needs to be met first.
We all wish that the Republic of Moldova stays on the European path, that in Chișinău we'll have authorities, a new parliament who will continue and support this process.
This new parliament will be elected in 2 weeks. Currently, it is the Party of Action and Solidarity that governs independently. It managed to keep the country on a steady pro-European course for 4 years. But over that time, the party's support dwindled significantly.
A strong majority of one party, at one hand, is an opportunity to move things forward faster, but at the same time is a great risk towards monopolizing of power by one party.
Still, it is the Party of Action and Solidarity that is leading the polls with its openly pro-European agenda.
In these elections, we have a fundamental goal, is to join the European Union in the next 4 years.
It's being followed in support ratings by the so-called Patriotic Bloc, a coalition of socialist and communist parties.
We are not against like a party European Union.
Within the bloc, this reserved embrace of the EU agenda doesn't seem to be at odds with maintaining ties with Moscow.
We are for a balanced foreign policy because we consider that Moldova is between European Union and Russia, and in our history you will see that we had very good relations with Russia.
In addition to these two major political players, there are more than 20 other political groups running in the elections, some of them with close or even direct ties to the Kremlin. The crucial vote that will most likely determine the geopolitical path forward for Moldova is scheduled for September the 28th. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
Now, Russia has been barred from major cultural events around the world, so the Kremlin is creating its own. The Intervision Song Contest is going to take place next Saturday, and it's more than just a pop concert. Reviving a Cold War tactic, the contest is meant to project to the world a strong, thriving Russia surrounded by allies. Michiel van Bloemstein brings us the details in this next report.
The Eurovision Song Contest, the most viewed music event in the world, is getting a rival. If the Kremlin gets its way, the upcoming Intervision Song Contest in Moscow will be bigger and better, all to show Russia is not as isolated as the West claims.
If you can get other countries to develop affection towards your country's values, respect, admiration for your country, then they're more inclined to see the world as you see the world and more inclined to cooperate with you.
The countries participating in the contest coming Saturday are mostly those that have been openly aligned with Moscow, or at least maintain good ties with the Kremlin. Two participating countries, however, stand out. Serbia is the only participating European country that also is a European Union candidate member.
The fact that they're taking part in this song contest is one piece of evidence that they're kind of leaning towards Russia.
And there will even be an artist from the United States, R&B singer B. Howard.
This kind of person, they are very important for Russian government as they can serve for their interest, and the interest is to divide Western societies, to demonstrate that not all Americans are against Russia.
The concept of an alternative to Eurovision isn't new at all. The communist bloc held the Intervision festival throughout the Cold War. Poland hosted the final few editions of the contest. The Polish band Vox performed at one of the events. While it was a political instrument back then, the members point out that artists didn't really have a choice.
There were no managers, but they told you what to do. Now do a week of touring. Now do 2 weeks of touring.
The band points out the Intervision organizers allowed them to function as an apolitical band, even though it brought its own problems when Poland's communist regime cracked down on dissent in the early 80s.
When Poland was under martial law, some artists played concerts for the communist police. We didn't. We were locked up at home without work for 7 months, but our conscience remained clean.
The original Intervision attracted Western attention and was devoid of outward politics. But while the organizers of the new Intervision claim the event is apolitical in nature, the regulations tell a different story. The organizers have a direct say in the selection of artists and songs. More tellingly, the contest's regulations emphasize traditional and national values. Finally, there is no televoting, so the winner is determined by juries. Russia's entry is the openly nationalist and jingoistic artist Shaman, who recently performed in North Korea. Pop culture, Russian politics experts say, is another weapon in the Kremlin's arsenal.
They need such tools in order to prove that they are a real power, great power, which possess not only military power, but also cultural attractiveness.
For a group like Vox, the answer to whether they would perform at the new Intervision event, even if invited, is crystal clear. And it's not because they already have a show planned in Warsaw on September 20th.
Absolutely not. It's nothing more than an exercise in propaganda from Putin, who tries to rebuild the Soviet Empire.
For TVP World, Michiel van Blommestein.
In Bulgaria, demonstrators took to the streets of Sofia over the weekend, protesting the country's planned currency switch from the lev to the euro. Now, the rally, organized by the pro-Russian Revival right-wing party, showcases not only economic concerns, but also broader political tensions unfolding in the country. Randy Potts reports.
Anti-government protests organized by the pro-Russian right-wing Revival Party were held over the weekend in the Bulgarian capital. Revival consistently polls at around 13%, putting them in the top 4 of Bulgaria's political parties. Some protesters chanted, "We want our lev, no to the euro." Demonstrators oppose replacing the Bulgarian currency, the lev, with the euro. Bulgaria is set to enter the eurozone on January 1st of 2026. The country started to make the switch last month, displaying prices in both currencies.
Since the 8th of August, prices must be shown in both levs and euros. And of course, we follow the official conversion rate set by the Bulgarian National Bank, so there is no way for it to be meddled with.
Bulgaria has met the economic criteria and received the green light from both the European Commission and the European Central Bank to go ahead with the switch. Speaking to the protesters, Kostadin Kostadinov, the leader of the pro-Russian party Revival, underlined the importance of the Bulgarian economy.
We see that both over there and here there are huge economic problems, and so at any given moment our country's economy could start going increasingly downhill. So the sooner we manage to overthrow this harmful Bulgarian government, the better for the Bulgarian people.
Many protesters agreed.
This is not about the euro. Everyone can buy euros, dollars and whatever they want. This is about sovereignty. I don't want Bulgaria to be in the eurozone. The lev is still the lev. Lev means lion. This is a Bulgarian currency, and we must keep it.
While the euro is front and center, Revival's protests aren't just about economics. As Bulgaria's leading pro-Russian party, Revival also takes issue with support for Ukraine. Since 2022, Bulgaria has manufactured 1/3 of all weapons sent from Europe to Ukraine. For TVP World, Randy Potts.
And protesters have also taken to the streets of Tbilisi in Georgia's capital, rallying against the government and calling for protection of the country's visa-free travel status within the European Union. Now, visa-free travel to the EU for Georgian citizens might soon be suspended as part of the bloc's measures to sanction the openly pro-Russian government. Authorities have so far refused to repeal the Russian-style foreign agent law introduced in 2023. The current government, run by the Georgian Dream Party, won last year's parliamentary elections amid multiple reports of irregularities pointing to Russian interference. As a result, Georgia's bid to join the European bloc remains on hold. And we're back to our main topic this evening. It's been an unsettling week in Poland. Russian drones violated Polish airspace, prompting NATO forces to scramble jets and shoot several of them down. Now, the strikes didn't just stop at Poland because Romania's skies were also breached, sending alarms across the region and now raising questions about the growing seriousness and reach of this conflict beyond Ukraine's borders. And joining me now in studio to talk about the latest developments and to hear Ukraine's perspective, I'm joined by Evgenia Kravchuk, the Deputy Chair of the Ukrainian Committee on Humanitarian and Information Policy. Evgenia, I'm so happy to have you here with us in studio. Did you just come from Ukraine? You traveled from
No,
Ukraine
I'm
to be
traveling
here?
between trips, and my next destination point is United States, and then I'm coming back to Ukraine.
So I'm happy to have you here with us. Well, also, I mean, Yevgenia, this week has been quite a chaotic one here in Poland. You know, your country, like no other, knows the fragile situation and the fear, and of course, what Russian aggression means. Now, let me ask you, did these Russian drone incursions that took place, and we're talking about what Poland says is minimum 19 of them, and then we had air raid sirens that sounded off yesterday. Do you think that this came as a shock for Ukrainians and to you personally?
Of course, we know that Putin wants to push the limits, and we were trying to explain to our partners in NATO countries and beyond that the empire stops only where it stopped. That's the logic of the imperialistic war. Russia is not fighting war on some, you know, Donbas region, as someone might think. It's they want to influence. They want to be a superpower. They want to be feared. You had a few episodes showing how Russia wants to interfere in Moldovan elections. What's going on in Georgia? Even this song contest. It might look like as a soft power and so on and so forth, but it's part of the big game. Actually, it's the war between civilized world and non-civilized, those who do not respect border and rules. And of course, I just want to compliment the idea of Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Sikorsky. It was his personal idea, not saying that it will be taken, but that's what Ukrainians were asking, saying, help us to shoot the drones on Ukrainian territory. So they will not fly further. And, you know, our viewers might ask, well, why Ukrainians didn't shoot these drones? Because we have not 19. We have now the biggest record was 800 drones. And another thing is that Ukrainians will share their technologies, will share our knowledge how to deal with this modern world war. Because when you shoot a drone that costs, you know, 15,000 euro, maybe at the most 20,000, with the missile that costs 1 million, it's not very sustainable, especially if each country has to be ready to, you know, shoot down hundreds of them.
You know, there is something that you did mention right there. So my question to you is, how do you think that Ukraine can actually help Poland in this context, and what can Poland learn from Ukraine's experience, particularly when it comes to countering drones?
Well, first of all, of course, we're happy to, well, not happy, but we're forced to train military who would be dealing with the new types of weapons they never used before. Because it's actually now, each month, there is new technology being developed. So when Russians started to send these waves, these swarms of drones, of hundreds of them, we developed a new system of anti-drone interceptors. And it's much cheaper than use F-16, F-35, all of these complicated missiles that should be used to intercept missiles, because Russians, you haven't experienced that, and I'm really sincerely hoping you will not experience that. They're not sending
Do you
just
think
drones.
we will experience it again? Because, I mean, now we saw it flying through Romania, right? So,
you know, again, from what I started, if Putin is not stopped in Ukraine, if people would just, other countries will say, we're tired, you know, let Ukraine surrender the territories and just deal with it. Putin will understand no one is going to stop him. So that's a very important question for the world.
Do you think that that's what he's telling himself right now by testing the West and testing NATO and testing Europe? The fact that maybe there's war fatigue and he can try to play out his cards and do what he wants and see how the world will react?
Well, I'm sure that Putin and Kremlin and the system did not expect actually such unity from European countries after 2022, because, you know, business as usual, closing eyes on annexation of Crimea, constant elections and these election cycles, and it's so easy to
red carpet in Alaska
to interfere. But I think honestly, that Putin is not really afraid of European countries. He thinks Europe is, as a grand museums, too lazy, hadn't had war for 3 generations, would not sacrifice anything out of comfort. So, they will just fall onto his feet. Yes, indeed, he is afraid of United States because being a super military power. But again, when we're talking about Russia and the economy of Russia, it's the same as just Germany. So all of the European countries that are in NATO combined are much advanced in technologies. They have a much stable economy, so it's they can develop also the technologies. And again, if Ukraine is the part of the security architecture for Europe, we can produce these weapons faster, cheaper, and tested on the battleground as it's manufactured and it goes to the battleground. So we're ready to share all of these new technologies because probably Ukraine is well, at least in top 3 leaders of the world in producing drones, but also working with the jamming machines that would push them down to not harming anything. So we're doing it because we want to live. So we'll be sharing these technologies. But also, if you see, for example, how Israel is being helped. Israel is not part of NATO, but when there are missiles flying to Israel, it's not just Israelis who intercept them.
Right. I spent quite some time in Israel, being the correspondent there, so I remember the ordeal since October 7. Actually, that's one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, not just, the Iron Dome, but there is something that I experienced in Israel, Yevgenia, and I want to talk about the humanitarian aspect. So my child, was sent to daycare, and in times of crisis, such as incoming sirens, this is something that Poland is not necessarily prepared for. I think you can agree, right? I mean, with what we witnessed, and in one of our reporters' reports earlier on, we heard, there's fear among Polish citizens. There's a lot of unease. Now, in that kind of scenario, Israel and Israeli children, they're somewhat ready, and they have a certain maneuver and tactics of how to deal with incoming sirens, how to protect themselves. What do you suggest of how Poland can learn from Ukraine? How do you educate suddenly the people here, or particularly youth, that don't understand, what is happening, and what to do if it keeps getting, I won't say keeps getting worse, but if the scenario takes place again?
Well, first of all, everyone needs to know what they should do if there is a crisis. What supermarket is the closest one and would have the stable, amount of food? What application on your phone would you use just to know about information? Because I know that people in Poland, they receive just SMS saying, do not touch the drone, or if you see a drone, tell us. In Ukraine, we developed a whole infrastructure, and also we can share this information, how to report about if you see something suspicious, where to locate the nearest shelter. Of course, in Ukraine, each school has to have a shelter. And for example, Kharkiv, which is a few dozens kilometers from Russian border, already built underground schools. So kids do not take a chance to go back and forth to the basement and back to the classroom. They actually go to these underground schools. And it's not just, we want this. We need this to keep the life as normal as possible, because Ukraine is still, a big country, although some people left, but we have over 30 millions living in Ukraine, maybe, 35 kids going to school every day. So everyone needs to know what they should do in this time of emergency. And actually, another good example, and it's a NATO country now, it's Finland. Finland being a mid-sized, not a big population, but they have 1,000 kilometers border with Russia. They have the best system of shelters, of underground shelters. Finland. In NATO, in all NATO countries, maybe just Switzerland, but they're out of NATO and out of EU has better, but they also have the mountains and different natural sources of these shelters. So there are different countries who could share this information, this system.
Evgenia, and just to wrap up, I mean, you did say you're going to the United States. You're heading there. How have you reacted personally to the response coming by the United States to these drones that have now, crashed down here on Polish territory, on NATO ally?
Well, I didn't see the huge reaction. I did saw the reaction, I think, of Marco Rubio saying that NATO was still, and it's good that United States is part of NATO and they're not showing any, signs that they're leaving. But also, it's another signal, and Poland is a good case, is to actually spend more on the defense and go to this 5% GDP, as United States rightfully asks so.
Thank you so much, Evgenia Kravchuk, for breaking it out down for us here on TVP World.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all for this edition of TVP World News Tonight. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching. Stay with us for more news and exclusive features.